Humanity had finally arrived at the moment it had long dreamed of. After decades of exploration and technological advancement, Earth had been invited to join the Galactic Council, an assembly of the most powerful and influential species in the known universe. It was a historic occasion, one that would forever alter the trajectory of humanity's future. The representatives from Earth, including political leaders and top scientists, were full of hope and excitement as they boarded the sleek, massive council station, suspended in the endless expanse of space. The council station itself was an impressive sight. An enormous structure orbiting a dying star, its architecture a blend of ancient designs and cutting-edge technology. Aliens from hundreds of different species milled about, exchanging knowledge and discussing galactic affairs. Humans, with their varied cultures and ideas, were seen as newcomers, but their scientific breakthroughs and innovation had made them a valuable addition to the Council's ranks. Or so they thought. In the early meetings, everything seemed perfect. There was a sense of camaraderie, an atmosphere of peace. The humans were praised for their technological prowess and their potential for contributing to galactic unity. Earth's delegation, led by Ambassador Richard Westbrook, smiled with pride, knowing their species had made an impression. They had been selected to play a role in maintaining peace and order across the galaxy, their technology and resources seen as vital to the Council's plans. But what they didn't know was that not everyone in the Council was as welcoming as they appeared. The Xandrians, a race of ancient, powerful beings with a history of dominance, had long viewed humanity's rise with suspicion. Their advanced technology and militaristic society made them one of the most influential factions in the Council. However, they feared the rapid rise of humans, especially as they began to explore and colonize planets on the outer fringes of known space. To the Xandrians, humanity's unyielding drive for progress and their potential to innovate at an unprecedented rate posed a serious threat to their centuries-old control over the galaxy. Behind closed doors, the Xandrians orchestrated a campaign to undermine humanity's place in the Council. They made subtle moves to weaken Earth's influence, while manipulating Council votes to keep humanity from gaining any significant power. Slowly, they began to plant seeds of doubt about humanity's intentions. False rumors about human aggression, their capacity for violence, and their supposed desire to dominate other species began to spread among the Council members. The betrayal came during a critical vote. The Council was to approve a new peacekeeping force to maintain order throughout the galaxy. The humans, with their advanced technology, had proposed an innovative solution: a cooperative peacekeeping initiative where they would provide oversight and leadership. But just as it seemed like humanity's proposal might pass, a surprise vote was held to reject it. Instead, the Council approved a more militaristic solution that would see the Council members policing the galaxy through overwhelming force. Earth's proposal was swiftly dismissed as naive and unfeasible. It was then that Ambassador Westbrook realized the depth of the conspiracy. The Council had rigged the vote, turning humanity into a scapegoat. Instead of being hailed as pioneers of peace, humans were now being framed as a threat to galactic stability. The decision was an unexpected blow, a direct attack on humanity's integrity. The Council's betrayal had begun. As the Council's condemnation of humanity echoed through the galaxy, the humans felt an overwhelming sense of shock. They had been invited to join the Council, only to be betrayed in the most brutal way possible. The consequences of the vote would ripple across the galaxy, marking the beginning of a dark chapter for both humanity and the galactic community. What had once been a hopeful partnership was now a full-blown conflict, one that would force humanity to fight for its survival. Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Humanity's place in the Galactic Council had always been seen as a triumph, a mark of their species' progress. Yet now, the truth began to seep through the cracks. Humanity had been betrayed. Ambassador Westbrook's official communiqué was leaked, revealing that the Council had not only rejected their peacekeeping proposal, but had also falsely accused humanity of planning an uprising. It wasn't just a diplomatic setback, it was an assault on Earth's very reputation. The backlash came swiftly. News outlets across the globe broadcasted the condemnation. Humanity, once seen as a beacon of hope, was now painted as a dangerous, unpredictable force. Aliens from across the galaxy took to the comms to denounce humans, some calling them warmongers, others labeling them as opportunists who were too eager to claim power. Trade agreements were torn up. Planets that had once been allies of Earth began severing ties, fearing the contagion of the so-called human threat. It was the beginning of a galactic isolation that was far more severe than any nation had ever faced. Earth's governments scrambled to respond. The United Nations quickly convened emergency meetings, and world leaders gathered to figure out their next move. For weeks, diplomats and military officials debated the best course of action. The uncertainty was suffocating. There were those who advocated for caution, calling for peace talks and negotiation, hoping to salvage what was left of humanity standing. But there were others, whispers in the shadows, who knew that the Council would never allow Earth to recover its dignity. It was during one of these high-stakes meetings that the decision was made. Humanity would not be silenced. They would fight. Despite the overwhelming odds against them, Earth's leaders, scientists, and military officials united with a common goal: to prove the Council wrong. If the galaxy saw humanity as a threat, then they would show the galaxy what true power looked like. Earth had always been underestimated, but they had the resources, the ingenuity, and the will to fight back. They would build a coalition, rallying species who were similarly disillusioned with the Council's corruption. They would fight for their place in the galaxy. As the first human ships were prepared for war, whispers of a revolution began to stir in the far reaches of the galaxy. The Council's actions had set off a ripple effect. Some species, once loyal to the Council, began questioning their allegiances. The Xandrians' iron grip on power was no longer as secure as it had been. Humanity, with its relentless drive and growing determination, had proven to be a force the Council hadn't anticipated. The political landscape was beginning to shift, and slowly some allies began to emerge. In the quietest corners of space, other alien races who had suffered under the Council's rule started to make contact with Earth's leaders. They were hesitant at first, wary of being caught in the crossfire of an intergalactic war, but their frustration with the Council's abuses outweighed their fears. They offered their support, sharing valuable intelligence about the Council's inner workings. It became clear that Earth would not fight alone. But just as humanity began to organize and prepare for the inevitable conflict, the real danger became apparent. The Council, realizing its control was slipping, moved quickly to eliminate the growing threat. They unleashed a new wave of propaganda, aimed at destroying humanity's credibility once and for all. They didn't just want to keep humanity in check. They wanted to destroy the very idea of Earth's power. And as the first fleets were built in secrecy, the galaxy's eyes remained fixed on humanity's every move, waiting for the first shot to be fired. The message was clear. Humanity had been betrayed. And now the hunt was on. The stakes had never been higher. The first strike came sooner than expected. Earth's military, under the direction of the newly formed Galactic Defense Coalition, launched a surprise counterattack against the Council's closest military allies. It was a calculated move, designed not only to show that humanity wouldn't back down, but also to prove that they were not as helpless as the Council believed. The initial assault targeted a major Council supply depot on the outskirts of the galaxy. A large fleet of human warships, previously hidden in Earth's deep space bases, emerged from the shadows. These ships, equipped with cutting-edge stealth technology and advanced weaponry, struck with precision. The supply depot, a key hub for the Council's forces, was completely destroyed in a matter of hours. No one expected humanity's fleet to be so well organized, let alone so efficient. The response from the Council was swift. Within days, reinforcements arrived, but humanity's advantage in speed and adaptability had already begun to show. Instead of confronting the Council directly, Earth's forces used hit-and-run tactics, striking where they were least expected and disappearing into the vastness of space. They had learned quickly from their past mistakes, and the human military, though smaller in size, was becoming a thorn in the Council's side. While the human fleet engaged the Council's forces in hit-and-run missions, humanity's leaders continued to rally support. Messages of hope and resistance spread throughout the galaxy, and more species began to reach out in secret. Some offered intelligence, others offered ships, and some simply offered their voices in the growing chorus of opposition to the Council's corrupt leadership. The Xandrians, who had long been the driving force behind the Council's policies, could no longer ignore humanity's rise. For the first time, they were forced to deal with a species that wasn't intimidated by their size, power, or influence. But the Xandrians miscalculated. They thought they could crush humanity quickly with their superior fleets and overwhelming force. But humans weren't like other species. They were quick to learn, fast to adapt, and unwilling to give up. By now, news of humanity's success was spreading. Some of the smaller, more independent races began to question the Council's narrative. They had seen the truth. Humans weren't the threat the Council painted them to be. Many had felt the oppressive grip of the Council's power and recognized that humanity was different. They were willing to stand up for their beliefs, to fight not just for their own survival, but for a new order in the galaxy. As the resistance grew stronger, a network of human sympathizers began to form in the Council's most loyal systems. The galaxy that had once been united under the Council's iron fist was beginning to fracture. What started as small raids against Council assets now turned into larger coordinated efforts. Humanity's resistance fighters had begun to strike deeper into enemy territory, targeting communication hubs, military outposts, and the very heart of the Council's political power. The most significant of these strikes occurred on the Council's central station, a vast hub of administration and command. In an audacious move, human forces infiltrated the station, planting advanced sabotage devices within the Council's most secure databanks. In a matter of hours, vital Council intelligence was wiped out, and with it, the Council's ability to coordinate their next moves was severely crippled. The message was sent loud and clear. Humanity was no longer a victim. They were no longer a weak species to be manipulated or destroyed. They were a force to be reckoned with, and they would not stop until the betrayal was avenged. As the first wave of humans returned to their hidden bases, their allies cheered, and the galaxy felt the rumblings of an unstoppable change. The Council was losing its grip, and humanity was leading the charge. The spark of resistance had ignited, and there was no turning back. The fight for the galaxy's future had begun, and humanity was ready to take its place at the center of it. As humanity's resistance grew bolder, the Galactic Council knew it could no longer underestimate Earth. The initial surprise attacks had caught them off guard, but now they were ready to take action. With their grip on the galaxy weakening, the Council made a decision. Humanity would be hunted down, its leaders captured or destroyed. A bounty was placed on the heads of Earth's top commanders, military officers, and diplomats. Every major bounty hunter, mercenary group, and assassin across the galaxy was put on notice. The hunt began immediately. Skilled hunters, most of whom had never faced a threat like humanity, began to converge on human-controlled space. These mercenaries were ruthless and well-equipped, hired by the Council to track down and eliminate any human resistance. The galaxy was filled with whispers of the bounty, tales of human leaders on the run, a new game that was drawing the most dangerous individuals in the universe. The first bounty hunters to encounter humanity quickly learned just how wrong they were to underestimate Earth's fighters. The humans were quick to adapt to the new threat, turning the tables on their would-be captors at every turn. Using their ingenuity, humans were able to outsmart and outmaneuver their pursuers. They didn't have the overwhelming firepower that the Council's forces wielded, but they had something far more dangerous: the ability to think outside the box, to improvise and create solutions on the fly. One of the first notable encounters involved a group of bounty hunters hired to capture Ambassador Westbrook, the leader of humanity's resistance. The hunters, expecting an easy capture, arrived on a small colony planet in the outer rim of human-controlled space. What they didn't know was that Westbrook had set a trap. In the dead of night, the hunters were ambushed by a group of local humans, using guerrilla tactics they had learned from their military training. Westbrook, with the help of his allies, turned the tables and captured several of the hunters instead, forcing them to give up critical information about the Council's operations. This was the first of many victories. Humans, it seemed, were everywhere, hiding in plain sight, biding their time, and waiting for the right moment to strike. As the bounty hunters' confidence faltered, a sense of fear began to spread among the ranks. Many of them, once eager for the rewards, now found themselves questioning their involvement. The Council's plan to eradicate humanity was turning into a costly and dangerous pursuit. Even the most skilled of bounty hunters, renowned for their deadly efficiency, found themselves in over their heads. One notable hunter, an alien known as Zarkin, had built a reputation for his ability to track down even the most elusive targets. He had been hired by the Council to find a key human resistance leader, Commander Ilara. Zarkin, confident in his superior abilities, tracked her to a remote asteroid field. But when he arrived, he found himself ensnared in a trap of his own making. Ilara, who had anticipated his arrival, turned the tables and captured Zarkin instead. She broadcasted his surrender across the galaxy, a bold statement to the Council and its allies. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Meanwhile, the Council grew desperate. The hunt for humanity's leaders was not going as planned. The more resources they poured into capturing humans, the more their forces were spread thin. The bounty hunters, once considered a surefire way to deal with the resistance, were becoming an increasingly unreliable tool. The Council had not anticipated the kind of resilience humanity possessed, their ability to adapt, to outthink, and to fight back with everything they had. And yet, despite the growing resistance, the Council remained determined to crush humanity. A new fleet of elite Xandrian warships was dispatched, led by the most experienced generals. Their mission was simple: find the humans, root them out, and destroy them. They were coming for Earth and its allies. This time, they would not fail. As humanity's leaders continued to outsmart their hunters, the stakes became even higher. The Council's plan was shifting from one of simple suppression to an all-out war. Humanity's fight for survival was far from over, and it was clear that this conflict would change the galaxy forever. As the hunt for humanity's leaders continued, a strange thing began to happen. The more the Council tried to stamp out humanity's resistance, the more cracks began to form within the Galactic Order. The Council, once a monolithic and unified force, was now being undermined by its own hidden flaws. Some species, previously loyal to the Council, began to doubt its leadership, seeing it as corrupt, oppressive, and no longer representative of the galaxy's best interests. Humanity's efforts to fight back were becoming a beacon for those who had suffered under the Council's rule for centuries. The resistance, initially small and fragmented, was now growing into a real movement. Disenfranchised species began to look to Earth as a symbol of hope, a sign that even the most oppressed could stand up to the Council and fight for a better future. What started as small, covered exchanges turned into an open network of resistance fighters. Among the first to join humanity were the Veldar, a proud and honor-bound warrior race who had been subjugated by the Council for generations. The Veldar's military strength and strategic genius were known throughout the galaxy, and they had long resented the Council for stripping them of their independence. When the Council turned its focus on humanity, the Veldar saw an opportunity, not just to help a fellow species, but to finally reclaim their lost glory. The Kresk, a species once enslaved by the Xandrians, also offered their support. For centuries, the Kresk had been forced to serve as little more than tools of war for the Council. Their people had long been brutalized and subjugated, their culture nearly wiped out in the name of galactic peace. Now free, the Kresk were determined to help humanity in its fight. They'd brought with them advanced technology, battle-tested equipment from their time as pawns in the Council's wars, which would prove invaluable to Earth's fledgling resistance. The Plorvans, a race of intellectuals who had long been forced to suppress their creativity under the Council's reign, also reached out to Earth. Though peaceful by nature, the Plorvans had watched as the Council used their technological expertise to wage war against weaker species. Their alliance with humanity would not be about military force alone, but about the power of knowledge, innovation, and scientific discovery. They provided humanity with advanced algorithms, new energy sources, and innovative strategies that would give the resistance an edge over the Council's overwhelming numbers. These new allies, each with their own bitter history of suffering under the Council, came together with humanity in a shared goal: to dismantle the corrupt system that had ruled the galaxy for centuries. The formation of this new alliance, dubbed the Forsaken Alliance, marked a pivotal moment in the war. Species that had once been isolated in their struggles now stood together, united by their desire for freedom and justice. And humanity, once an outcast on the galactic stage, was now the heart of this new movement, driving the charge against the Council's tyranny. The Forsaken Alliance quickly grew in strength. The Veldar taught humanity new combat techniques, refining their military strategy. The Kresk shared valuable resources and weapons, giving the Resistance the firepower it needed to stand against the Council's might. The Plorvans, meanwhile, provided critical intelligence, hacking into the Council's networks to reveal their secret plans and weaknesses. Together, they began striking at the Council's most vulnerable points: supply lines, communication hubs, and heavily fortified bases. Each victory, though hard-fought, further solidified the Alliance's resolve. The Council, realizing that it had underestimated the strength of these rebels, responded with increasing brutality. They dispatched more warships, deployed more troops, and turned entire systems into war zones. But the Alliance, though smaller and outgunned, was resourceful. With each passing day, the Council's grip on the galaxy weakened further. The tide was turning. The Alliance was no longer just a collection of disparate species fighting for survival. It had become a formidable force capable of challenging the Council's dominance. And as the first of many battles were won, the galaxy began to take notice. Humanity was not alone, and the fight for a new order was just beginning. The tide of the war was shifting in humanity's favor. The Forsaken Alliance had grown stronger with each passing day, and the Council was beginning to feel the pressure. However, the true test of humanity's strength would come with the battle for the core worlds, the heart of the Council's power. These systems were home to the Council's most loyal members, the wealthiest and most influential factions in the galaxy. If humanity could take control of the core, the Council's reign would crumble, and the galaxy would be irrevocably changed. The Council had fortified the core worlds, positioning their most powerful fleets and elite troops to protect these vital systems. They believed that the heart of their empire was impenetrable, and that no rebellion, no matter how strong, could challenge their dominance here. The Alliance knew better. They understood that the battle for the core would be the final confrontation, a decisive moment that would determine the fate of the galaxy. In the lead-up to the battle, the Forsaken Alliance prepared for a coordinated strike, each species contributing their unique strengths. The Veldar, renowned for their tactical genius, devised a plan that involved a multi-pronged assault across several core systems. They would strike hard and fast, exploiting weaknesses in the Council's defenses and overwhelming them with surprise attacks. The Kresk contributed their advanced weaponry, giving the Alliance the firepower it needed to pierce the Council's formidable defenses. Meanwhile, the Plorvans worked tirelessly to infiltrate the Council's networks, sabotaging communications and feeding misinformation to the enemy. The humans, experienced in adapting to rapid technological changes, played a pivotal role in the Alliance's strategy. Their ships were among the most advanced in the galaxy, their crews highly skilled in both combat and tactics. Humanity's ability to innovate and think on its feet would be a key factor in this battle. Their goal was clear: to create chaos and confusion in the heart of the Council's power, to make the enemy doubt their ability to control the galaxy. The battle began with a massive fleet movement toward the core. The first wave of attacks struck at the Council's outer defenses, where the Alliance's forces tore through their patrols with ease. It was clear that the Council had underestimated the Alliance's strength, and they scrambled to mobilize reinforcements. However, the Veldor's strategy had already taken its toll. Key communication lines were severed, and the Council's coordination faltered. The Council's response was slow, disjointed, and vulnerable. As the Alliance forces pressed deeper into the core worlds, they encountered fierce resistance. The Council's elites fought with everything they had, but the Alliance was relentless. The battles raged across entire systems, with entire fleets engaging in high-stakes space combat. The human warships, equipped with advanced stealth technology, managed to slip past the Council's lines, infiltrating their most secure systems and striking vital targets from within. Despite the intensity of the battle, the Alliance continued to push forward. They struck at the Council's main military command centers, crippling their ability to deploy reinforcements. On the ground, the resistance fighters, Human, Veldar, Kresk, and Plorvin, fought side by side, retaking critical planetary systems and liberating millions of oppressed citizens. As each world fell under Alliance control, more and more species began to rally to their cause, swelling their ranks and further weakening the Council's authority. But the Council was not without its last-ditch efforts. The Xandrians, sensing the tide turning, brought out their most feared weapon, a massive planet-killing warship known as the Dreadstar. This warship, the pinnacle of Xandrian technology, was capable of obliterating entire planets with a single shot. The Council's leadership, in a desperate bid to maintain control, deployed the Dreadstar toward the heart of the Alliance's fleet. If the Alliance could not destroy it, the war would be lost, and the Council would retain its dominance. The battle grew even more intense as the Dreadstar loomed large on the battlefield. The Alliance realized that their next move would determine everything. Humanity, Veldar, Kresk, and Plorvin forces launched a daring attack, targeting the Dreadstar's weak points. The humans, using their ingenuity, developed a risky strategy involving a fleet of decoy ships and a coordinated strike on the Dreadstar's engines. It was a do-or-die mission, and failure was not an option. As the battle raged on, humanity's forces, against all odds, managed to disable the Dreadstar, preventing its devastating strike. The Council had lost its most powerful weapon, and its forces were in disarray. The Alliance had struck a decisive blow. The battle for the core was over. With the fall of the core worlds, the Council's reign of terror came to a crashing halt. The galaxy was forever changed, and the new order had begun. The Forsaken Alliance had won, and humanity had proven that no matter how strong the opposition, it could stand tall and fight for what was right. The fall of the core worlds was the beginning of the end for the Galactic Council. With its central systems in chaos, the Council's once iron grip on the galaxy had been shattered. The Forsaken Alliance, emboldened by their success, began to push forward in a series of decisive strikes across the galaxy. The momentum was on their side, and the Council's remaining forces were scattered, demoralized, and uncoordinated. But despite the setbacks, the Council's leadership refused to accept defeat. The Xandrians, still clinging to their power, made a final stand on their homeworld. They began rallying the last of their loyalists, hoping to make one last desperate push to retake the core. Their propaganda machine worked overtime, trying to rally the galaxy's remaining forces against the human threat and the growing rebellion. However, their words no longer held the same weight. Species that had once feared the Council's dominance now saw them for what they truly were, tyrants, whose power was built on manipulation, oppression, and lies. For the first time, the galaxy began to see a new possibility, one in which the Council no longer dictated the future. The Council's betrayal of humanity had caused a rift that could not be repaired, and the more they tried to hold on, the more they exposed their vulnerability. Earth's resistance had become the voice of the oppressed, and humanity had emerged as a symbol of hope for all those who sought freedom. In the final months of the war, the Forsaken Alliance grew ever stronger. The Veldar and Kresk, who had once been enslaved by the Council, now led the charge in liberating the remaining Council-controlled planets. They liberated worlds that had been under Council rule for centuries, bringing hope and freedom to people who had never known a life without oppression. The Plorvans, with their vast knowledge and intellect, began working on the rebuilding efforts, offering new technologies and peaceful solutions for the war-torn systems. And humanity, with its boldness and drive, became the face of the new galactic order. With every victory, the Council's influence waned. Their fleets, once the most powerful in the galaxy, were now crippled. Their leaders, once thought untouchable, were now fugitives hiding in the dark corners of space. The core systems, which had been their stronghold, were now firmly in the hands of the Resistance, and the Council's ability to regroup was nearly impossible. The once unified empire was splintering. But there was one final crucial battle left. The Council's leadership, now reduced to its most desperate members, retreated to the center of their empire, the legendary Council capital of Xandra. This was where their reign had begun, where they had built their power. The Xandrians and their remaining allies gathered what forces they had left for a last stand. If they could hold Xandra, they could try to negotiate some form of survival. The Forsaken Alliance knew that this battle would decide everything. The fall of Xandra would mean the complete collapse of the Council. The stakes had never been higher. Earth's forces, alongside their allies, gathered for the final assault. It would be a battle unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The vast fleets of the Alliance, bolstered by human ingenuity and their allies' strength, moved toward Xandra with determination and fury. As the Alliance approached the capital, the Council launched its final defense. Xandra's massive defenses, once thought impenetrable, now stood as a last symbol of the Council's dwindling power. The Alliance struck hard, using everything they had to breach the city-sized defense structures and destroy the remaining Council strongholds. The battle was brutal. The sky above Xandra rained down fire as ships and soldiers fought relentlessly. On the surface, fierce ground battles raged, with humans, Veldar, Kresk, and Plorvans all fighting side by side, pushing toward the Council's central citadel. It was in this citadel that the remaining Council leaders had holed up, clinging to their last vestiges of power, but it would not be enough. Humanity's resolve, the combined strength of the Forsaken Alliance, and the courage of those who had suffered under the Council's rule proved too much. As the final walls of Xandra crumbled, the last of the Council's leaders were captured or killed. The battle was won. The Council's reign was over. And with it, a new era began. With the fall of Xandra and the complete defeat of the Galactic Council, the galaxy was forever changed. What had once been a realm controlled by fear, oppression, and manipulation was now open to the promise of freedom, cooperation, and a brighter future. The Forsaken Alliance, united under the banner of justice and hope, stood as the new force in the galaxy, not just as conquerors, but as the architects of a new order. The first task was rebuilding. Entire planets lay in ruin, and millions of lives had been lost in the war. The Resistance, now the galaxy's governing body, immediately set to work providing aid, food, and medical supplies to the devastated systems. The Plorvans, with their vast intellect, took the lead in designing new infrastructure and helping to establish peaceful methods of governance. Their knowledge helped streamline the rebuilding process, ensuring that no planet would be left behind. Humanity, having borne the brunt of the initial attacks, took it upon themselves to establish the groundwork for a new, fair system of government. No longer would a single group or species have absolute control. Earth's leaders, having witnessed the horrors of the Council's tyranny firsthand, understood that true peace could only be achieved through cooperation and respect among all species. Humanity proposed a democratic council of representatives from each free planet, ensuring that every voice was heard and that no one group could ever dominate again. The Veldar and Kresk, having fought alongside humans for so long, embraced this vision of equality. Their people, who had been subjugated for so long, were now free to chart their own futures. The Veldar, with their warrior spirit, became protectors of the new peace, ensuring that no force would dare rise up against the collective will of the galaxy's people. The Kresk, ever resourceful, shared their technology and their knowledge of war to help keep the galaxy's peace, ensuring that weapons were used only in defense. Over the next several months, former Council strongholds were converted into humanitarian centers. Former slaves from all corners of the galaxy were given the chance to build new lives. The galaxy's economy was restructured to benefit everyone, not just the wealthy elites who had once ruled with an iron fist. Trade routes were established, and the galaxy's diverse cultures, once oppressed by the Council, were encouraged to flourish and share their unique traditions, knowledge, and resources. Yet, while the galaxy worked toward healing, not everyone was ready to let go of the old ways. Small factions of former Council loyalists, disgruntled by their loss of power, began to plot in the shadows. They saw the new government as fragile and the alliance as something they could destroy. But the galaxy's new leaders were prepared. The spirit of cooperation and unity that had won them the war would serve as their greatest weapon in the years to come. Humanity, having once been on the receiving end of the Council's betrayal, now found itself at the forefront of the galaxy's reconstruction. Their leadership was forged in the fires of war, and it was clear that Earth's place in the galaxy was no longer one of subjugation. Humans had not only fought for their own freedom, but they had fought for the freedom of all species. They had proven that no empire, no matter how vast, could withstand the determination of those who refused to be oppressed. The final steps toward peace came in the form of a historic summit. Representatives from every species, Veldar, Kresk, Plorvin, and beyond, gathered at a neutral station, orbiting a restored planet. The treaty that was signed that day marked the end of the old ways and the birth of the Galactic Federation. The Federation would be based on equality, mutual respect, and the shared goal of protecting the freedom of all beings. Each planet, each species, would have a say in the governing of the galaxy, ensuring that the lessons of the past would never be forgotten. As the treaty was signed, the galaxy looked to the future. The long, dark days of the Council's reign were over, and a new dawn had risen. The galaxy would no longer be bound by tyranny. It would be a place where every voice was heard, where every species had a role to play in shaping the future. Humanity had proven that, no matter the odds, they would rise. They had been betrayed, hunted, and forced into war, but in the end, they had won, not just for themselves, but for every living being in the galaxy. And as the stars above shone brighter than ever before, the people of the galaxy knew that this was only the beginning of a new era.